Okay, good morning. Anybody around? Anybody around? Steve, you around?
Good morning, I'm here.
Good. Good morning. Whew. Just came back from the base level. Just made it on time. Good. Okay. Whew.
Hello, anybody there?
Good morning.
Okay. Who else is there besides Steve? Marvin?
Marvin's here.
All right. That means hopefully Harvey will be getting on as well. All right, ran a little bit long this morning. But I'm going to start us with the learning sponsors, and then we'll pick up the Gemara for today. Okay. Marty, will you go this morning? I hope everything's okay. Oh, here he is. Okay. Marty, everything all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was at the base level.
Oh, okay. They had a minion, all right? Okay. Good. Okay. All right, learning sponsors, a year of learning, Sue and Arnie Garelick in memory of Malka Perlman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Rosna Bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch. And in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shall share her children and grandchildren in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon, Sharon and Fred Liska, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Phil Kaplan, friends of Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gidler, China Bat Yeshaya, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory, friends of Malka Levy, Malka Bat Yosef, friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher. A month of learning by Marcia Federbush in memory of her husband, Oriel Pinchas ben Arav Shimon, by Gary and Marcia Schrager, in memory of his father, David ben Yosef, and his mother, Freda Bat Hendel, by Dov Budlander, in memory of his parents, Tzvi ben Yaakov Yitzchak and Bela Drasha Bas Arav Dov Ber, and his in-laws, Yehuda Tzvi ben David Nachum, and Alka Chaya Bas Avram Yosef. Mel and Haran Haller, in memory of his father, Avram ben Ze'ev. Today is the 23rd, right? So we have a day of learning by Lillian Siv, in memory of her husband, Yosef ben Yaakov Shlomo. And Shemas Heaven Aliyah, Crank Rafi of Velti Yashir Shem Taliyah, and Lachol B'nai Israel, a good Gaben Shtiah.
Amen.
All right, we go into the Gemara.
Amen. Amen. Right.
Okay.
Amen.
Mem Zion Amud Aleph, right? Okay. So I want to pick up really from the very bottom of Mem Vav Amud Beis, okay, where the Gemara raised, right, the question, right, there, and then it was a response, okay. Amar Rav Yehuda B'rei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilat Mishmei Rav. Okay, that's about a couple lines up from the bottom on Mem Vav Amud Beis real quickly as our transition, right? So they were asking another question in regards to the diaspora, okay? In terms of the suffix, okay? And he says to him, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilat Mishmei Rav Shmini Safek Shvi'i. It's the 8th day, but it's questionably the 7th day. Shvi'i LeSukkah. Okay, it's the 7th day for Sukkot. Ushmini LeBracha. Okay, that's what he said. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, then Rabbi Yochanan Amar Shmini Lezeh Ulezeh. Okay, and therefore he was saying in regards the challenge was dwelling in the Sukkah. Okay, what was the status going to be? Meitav Kuli Alma Lo Plige Diadvinen. Nobody, the whole world the challenges. Everybody says there's no disagreement. Okay, they all agree that on the 8th day, okay, when it is Safek, you dwell in the Sukkah. Kipligi, where did they disagree? As we Zion and Aleph, Levruche, question about saying the bracha
On the 8th day.
According to the one who says that Shmini is actually Shvi'i, right? And therefore it's really the 7th day of the holiday, right? What happens? Lamanda Amar Shvi'i L'Sukkah Bruche Nami Mevav.
He also has to make a bracha.
You say the bracha, right? In that case,
Right, because it's only the 7th day. Right?
top right on Mem Zion Amud Aleph, the second line. Lamanda Shmini Lazeh Ulazeh, but the one who says it's really the 8th day, okay, what happens then? Bruchi lo mevarchinan. Okay, we don't say the blessing for dwelling in the sukkah on that occasion.
Why sick?
Right? That's what we say, right? And remember, actually, there's a machloket. Okay, do you really need to be in the sukkah?
Right.
So what happened? Amar Rav Yosef. So here now the Gemara tries to come to an answer. We pick up our new material. Right? Amar Rav Yosef, Nekot the Rabbi Yochanan biyadech. Choose, take the view of Rabbi Yochanan firmly in your hands. In other words, follow that, right? The Rav Huna bar Bizna, v'chol gedolei hador, ikla'u b'sukkah, because it happened that Rav Huna, son of Rav Bizna, all the gedolim of that generation came into the sukkah, bishmini safek shvi, on the occasion when it was the 8th day, perhaps really it was the 7th day, right? Meitav, Havu Yatve, they came and they sat in the sukkah. And what did they do?
Ruchi lo ruchi.
But they didn't say a blessing. So again, the attempt to use a real maaseh to show what the halacha is. Okay?
Rabbi Green, why
Yeah.
isn't it a Baal Tosef? If you sit in the sukkah on the 8th day, it should be Baal Tosef.
Oh, welcome, Deb. Why isn't it Baal Tosef? Asks Deb.
Because it's a doubt it could be the 7th.
Because it could be the 7th day. So it's not Baal Tosef. If it's Shmini Safek Shvi, it could be the 7th day. Remember, we said you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That could be, or you could have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that would still be your 7 days. And that's what they're talking about, right?
Every time we have a suffix, it's like the second day of Pesach, second day of Shavuos, we say the bracha. So why don't we say the bracha?
Good point, Marty. All right, you heard that? Marty?
No,
Okay.
I
I
didn't
didn't
hear.
hear what.
A few
What's it?
things. Okay, number one, we could argue suffix brachas lahak. That would be one answer. A second answer could be, as Marty was just saying, right? That in other occasions, we have example that we do say the bracha, even though it's, okay? But what happens here? Says the Gemara, V'dilma svira laho keman da'amar, kevan sheberach yom tov rishon, ve'ino mevarech. Okay, could say, well, maybe since he said the bracha at the beginning, he holds that was the oraita. The rest of the week, so to speak, it's the Rabbanan. And maybe he holds that he doesn't have to say a bracha when it's a Rabbanan situation, which remember was the,
Isn't he saying that you only have to make, the sheet that holds, you only have to make the bracha once. The first time you go into.
because it's the oraita. And the rest of the time, you don't have to say it.
Right.
And remember, the argument that the Gemara brought to our attention was, wait a second, how can you say that? We've got an example by Hanukkah candles, which is a Darabanan, but we do say a bracha there. Okay? So that was the argument to say, no, that view, okay, doesn't apply. Right? So what happens here? All right? Gemire the me'afar atu. The Gemara says, no, your story that you told us about Rav Huna Bar Bizna and the other Gedolim, you can't use that particular story as a proof text. Why? Because they were coming from the field, from the meadow, and they hadn't been in the sukkah whatsoever yet. And so you can't use that situation as a text, as your proof. Now, Gemara picks up and then tells us, Ika da'am, right? And there are others who say it's this way, telling the following, Baruch kule ama lo pligi, de lamovarchina. Everybody says in regards to a blessing on that occasion, they don't disagree that we don't do the blessing. Ki plige, what do they argue about then? The meitav, whether one has to dwell in the sukkah on that day, the 8th day that's Safek Shvi'i, right? Leman da'amar Shvi'i, l'shiva, l'sukkah, the one who says it's really the 7th day, right? Meitav yadvinan, you have to sit in the sukkah then. Leman da'amar Shmini, l'zeh l'zeh, but the one who says it's really the 8th day, right? What is he going to challenge? Meitav nami lo yadvinan. And therefore we say there that we don't have to dwell in the sukkah on that occasion. Now, do we have a firm answer yet?
No.
Of course. Okay, Amar Rav Yosef. There's Rav Yosef. Again, Nekat the Rabbi Yochanan biyadecha. Choose the perspective of Rabbi Yochanan. Why? Gemara deshma'ate mani. Why? Because who is the author or who's the editor? Who is the one who said this lesson, Rav Yehuda, Berei de Rav Shmuel Bar Shelat. It was Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, right? Shmuel Bar Shelat. What did he say? Ubashmini Safek Shvi'i Lavar Misuka Yati. He said that on that occasion of the 8th day, where it was questionably the 7th day, outside of the sukkah, one should sit, okay? Vehilchata, but the law is meitav yadvinen, that we do sit, which was the view of Rabbi Yochanan, exactly. Beruchi lo mevarchinan. But
We don't make a bracha.
Okay, now that we've clarified, I think we've clarified that.
What should we do?
Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Omrim Zman b'shmini shel Chag, ve'ein Omrim Zman b'shvi'i shel Pesach. Since we're now following Rabbi Yochanan with one example, do we follow Rabbi Yochanan then now with another example? What is he telling us? Right, we're about halfway down the Amud. Okay, our Mem Zayin. Okay, he's saying to us, right, that we say the Shehechiyanu blessing on the 8th day, then of
Which means right?
Shmini Atzeres. Okay, and what happens? But we don't say it on this 7th day of
Pesach.
now.
Naturally.
Stop and say the question. Well, Shmini Atzeret is a holiday,
Chag B'Tzatzmo, right?
so wouldn't it therefore be reasonable to say if it's its own, it's entitled to a Shechiyanu?
Right.
Whereas the last day of Pesach, it's not its own holiday; it's all part of the same holiday.
Right.
So let's see what the Gemara says. V'amar Rabbi Levi, he says, Bar Chama, v'itema Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina. Okay, Teda. Okay, you should know. Shaharei Chaluk v'shlosha Dvarim. That there's a difference with 3 aspects between the 7th day of Pesach and the 8th day, so to speak, Shmini Atzeret, on Sukkot. B'Sukkah, on the one hand, there's a difference in regarding to the Sukkah, whether you have to dwell in it or not. B'Lulav, second case is regarding whether we need to use Lulav. The answer, of course, is no, we don't use Lulav on Shmini Atzeret. V'Nisu Hamayim, and the third is performing the water libation ceremony in the temple. Right? Ula Rabbi Yehuda, and I think Art Scroll had some notes on that particular occasion, right? All right. Yeah. Okay. So what happens? Ula Rabbi Yehuda de Amar belug hayam asech kol shmona. So what about the view of Rabbi Yehuda, asks the Gemara, that he said that with a particular measure of water, you do perform the Nisu Chamayim ceremony all 8 days. In other words, throughout Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret, right? Harei Chaluk b'shnei Dvarim. Then for him, it's only the difference is only on 2 items and not 3 items. Okay. Ihachi, says the Gemara, if that's the case, Shvi'i shel Pesach nami harei chaluk b'achilat matzah. I might argue then, okay, if you're looking for differences between Pesach and Shavuos, and the Sukkot, I'm sorry, right? What happens? What about the fact that I have the example of eating matzah, which is deoraita, only the first night of Pesach. But the rest of Pesach, I don't have a requirement really to eat matzah.
A lot of
Right.
Siddish Rabbanim did not eat matzah except for
First night.
the first night at the Seder, the rest they didn't because they were worried about big tumors.
Okay, interesting point. Thank you, Erwin, for sharing that. The Amar, as the Gemara is now going to tell us, right? The Amar Mar, Laila Rishona Chova, that the first night is obligations. Mikan ve'elech reshut. Okay, so for those people who always have stomach problems because of matzah, all right, that's one of the things that you used to, at least I was, when I was asked the shaila, I was to tell them, no, you do have an obligation to eat it the first night, but if you find the matzah problematic, okay, in terms of situations, okay, you don't have to eat it, okay? So the Gemara says, Hachi hashta, how can you compare that? Right? Why? Hatam milayla chaluk. There, okay, it's separated from the night. Miyom eino chaluk. But there's no difference. There's no separation or distinction from the day. Hacha, here, in our case of Sukkot, afilu miyom nami chaluk. Here too, it's also separated from the day. Ravina Amma. It says, Ravina Zechaluk Mishalefanav. Ravina is going to give a little different explanation. There, he says it's different from the day before. Okay? V'zeh Zechaluk Mishalefnei Panav. There, it's different even from a day before the day before. In other words, what do you have? Okay? The only difference from Pesach is that the 7th day and the 6th day, they're both still Pesach. Whereas on Shmini Atzeret, that really is a totally different holiday. And it's exactly separate from Sukkot. That's the big difference. Okay, so what happens? Amar Rav Papa, Hachi Kativ. I'm going to give other examples that show the difference. Okay, what other examples can we think of? Okay, says Rav Papa, how about the number of offerings and the kind of offerings that we have on Sukkot versus Shmini Atzeret? On Shmini Atzeret, it specifically says par, a single animal, one ox. What did we see on Sukkot? It starts with the first day is, I think, 13, second day is 11, 10, etc. So that's what he's going to tell. Hacha katif par. There, I mean, it's here on the 8th day, it's written par. Hatam katif parim. There it's written multiple oxen. Going to get another example. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar. Hacha kativ bayom. Here it's written on the day. Hatam kativ uvayom. And on that day. So there, it's continuous. Here, on the day means specifically to Shmini Atzeret. So that's another example. Rav Ashi Amar.
Uvayom is talking about Chol Yom HaSheni, Yom HaShlishi, Yom
Right.
Sukkot. So that's connecting
Connecting, going on.
But the Yom HaShmini is
Specifically.
separate, not
Specifically
not
that,
all the people.
right? Okay. One more example, right? Rav Ashi Amar Hacha Kativ Kamishpat, Hatam Kativ Kamishpatam. Again, like there, plural. Okay, again, the number of days. So we see a number of examples. So Gemara says at this point, Lema, right? Shall we say, says the Gemara, Lema Messiah, shall we say that this shows, right? Support that the fair it. Okay. Haparim, ha'elim, v'haklasim, ma'agvin ze'et ze. Okay. In other words, these were all listed, right? Whereas that was not the case again with regards to Shmini Atzeret. Okay. So what happens, right? That one bringing, you have to bring all of them to be fulfilled, the requirement for Sukkos. That's not the case for Shmini Atzeret. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Parim ein ma'akvin ze et ze, shaharei mitma'atim v'hochi. Okay, there, he says, no, that's different situation, says Rabbi Yehuda, right? That therefore the not bringing oxen does not limit, does not impinge on the bringing of the others, because there we see a gradual delimitation,
Reduction.
okay, of what animals have to be brought. But they said to him,
Okay.
don't we say also that they all gradually, all right, limit and they diminish as they go to the 8th day. Amarle, and his answer to them was, Shmini regel bifnei atzmohu,
Still good.
it's a holiday unto itself, right? Shekashem sheshivat yemei hachag tu'unin korban, that the same way that the other 7 days of Sukkot each have certain requirements as offerings, okay? Not only that, Vashir, and it has its own song that the Levites sing, Ubracha, and they have their own reference in Birkat Hamazon or in the Amida, okay, Velina, and they have the requirement of staying over, Af Shmini, Ta'un Korban, Vashir Ubracha Velina. So Shmini Atzeret itself has its own unique offering. It has its own unique song by the Levites. It also has it, when it's said in Birkat Hamazon or in the Amida, it has its own specific reference. V'yom Hashmini
That's it.
Chag Hazeh, or V'yom HaChag Hashmini Hazeh. There, right? Velina, and it has its own requirement of staying overnight. So we go over now to Amud Beis. Mai Lavzman, asks the Gemara. What about the reference there of Shechianu? No, he says there, we're not talking about the bracha when we refer to that, right? Birkat Hamazon Utfila. We're talking about a mention of the Shmini Atzeret specifically in the inclusion of the Birkat Hamazon and the Amida. Hachanami mistabra, and this seems logical, he says, right? Why? De isaka da'at chazman, because if you thought I had been referring to reciting Shechianu there, Zman kol shiv'ah, all right, do we really say the Shechianu blessing each and every day of Sukkot? That's not the case.
No.
Not a problem. The ilo berech ha'idna mevarech l'machar uliyoma achaluna. Okay, so the Gemara says, wait a second, that's not a problem, because if you forgot to say it the Shechianu, let's say the first day, you make it up on the second day, or another day of Chol HaMoed, or even the last day of Sukkot. You could do it then. Mikol makom, okay, kos ba'inan. But wait a second, says the Gemara. Maybe we need to say it in conjunction with Kiddush, right? Lema misayele la Rav Nachman. Maybe then this comes to support the view of Rav Nachman. The Amar Rav Nachman, Zman Omro Afilu B'Shuk. Okay. In other words, maybe you're going to say, no, I don't have to say Shechianu on the coast. I could do it even if I realize I'm walking through the marketplace and I say, oh, I forgot to say Shechianu this morning when I bench lulav. I'll say it now, kind of thing. The Iamat Ba'in and Kos ko yoma mi'ika. Do we say then that one has to say it each day,
Right.
every day of Chol HaMoed? All right, so you'd have right a drink every morning as part of breakfast, right? So what happens? What sounds good? Dilma de ikla leikos. So our answer is perhaps he had the occasion. It happened to come there was a cup available to him. Okay, and that was the situation.
Yeah.
So now we have another question. Do we say that Rabbi Yehuda actually requires that on the 8th day on Shmini Atzeret, you have to say over? Vahatanya. But aren't we taught elsewhere in another Braita? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Minayin lePesach Sheni she'eino ta'un lina. How do we know that on Pesach Sheni we're not required, right, to stay over? Shene Amar, because it says, right, Upanita baboker v'halachta la'ohalechem, right? Uktiv, and then afterwards it's written, Sheishet Yamim Tochal Matzah. Right, so therefore the thought maybe the juxtaposition of these psukim would give Rabbi Yehuda his position that you do need lina on Pesach Sheni, but he says no, right? Etshe ta'un shisha ta'un lina. This is what Rabbi Yehuda would argue. Where we're required that we have a number of days, 6 days before it, that's when we require staying over afterwards. At she'eino ta'un shisha, where you do not require, 6 days of offering, therefore eino ta'un lina, then you don't require staying over. So the Gemara asks, Lama'ute mai, to exclude what? Lav lama'ute nami shmini shel chag. Doesn't therefore that also exclude Shmini Atzeret? No, he says no. Lama'ute Pesach Sheni de Kavate. Now that comes to exclude Pesach Sheni according to him, according to Rav Nachman. Hachanami mistabra, and this does seem logical. Why ditnan? Because we learn the following in a Mishnah: Habikurin teunin korban, bashir, uchnufa, velina. That for the bringing of the first fruits, what do we say? That it requires its own offering, its own psalm, Levitical psalm, sung, right? Tnufa, it requires the waving, and it also requires the staying over. So at this point, right? So the Gemara now is going to raise the following. Man shamat le damar tnufa, basically asking the question, who is it then that requires this kind of waving? Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda. V'ka'amar ta'un lina. And he also says that he requires the staying over. The Tanya is taught in the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Vehinach to, that you, when the Torah says Vehinach to, that you will, I'll use the word for the moment, place it, as in placing it before the altar. Zot nufa, that implies the waving. Ata Omer zot nufa, do you say that's waving? Or ella hanacha mamash? Or do you say that's simply a way of placing it down, putting it down? Kashahu Omer vehinach vehinicho, and when the Torah therefore says you place it, hare hanacha amor, maybe it's requiring simply putting it down there by the altar. Hama'ani makayim vehinach to zot nufa. So how then might I argue that the phrase placing it also implies waving? Dilma, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Perhaps it's based on the view of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Tanya, why, who teaches in the Braita, V'lekach hakohen hatem, where it says for the Bikurim that the Kohen takes I'm going to use the word basket, okay? All right, in his hand. Lamed al habikurim shetu'unin tnufa, divrei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Okay, that teaches, it refers to the first fruits that require this kind of waving, according to the view, the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. My Tama. Okay, what's the reasoning here? Or really, what's my Tama, the Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? What's his reasoning? Atya yad yad mishlamim. Okay, he mentions Gzeira Shava on the word hand, okay, from another place. We're going to see yad is a reference to the, right, putting the hand and taking it for the bikurim, but we also have the word yad associated with the shlamim. And now the Gemara is going to give us the text for that Gzeira Shava. K'tiv hacha, it's written in here in one place. V'lakach hakohen hatena miyadecha. That's regarding the bikurim, that the Kohen take the basket in the hand. K'tiv hatam, and it's written there by the Shlamim. Yadav tiviena et Ishei Hashem. So we have the same word. Makan Kohen, aflahalan Kohen. So the same way there it's the Kohen, here it's the Kohen. Umalahalan Baalim, Afkan Baalim. So the same way there we're talking about the owners, the one who is bringing the offering. So here we're talking about the owners, the ones bringing the offering. Ha Ketzad, how then is it done? Kohen maniach yado tachat yad Baalim, that the Kohen puts his hand underneath, right, the hand of the owners, umenif, and he waves. Mai hava Allah. So what's the end result? Right? Rav Nachman Amar, and says Rav Nachman, Omrim, we say Zman, B'shmini shel Chag. Okay, so what do we have here? Okay, back to our earlier discussion, really of right? Namely, Rav Nachman says we say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres. Right? The Rav Sheshet Einam Rimsman B'Shmini Shel Chag, and Rav Sheshet is saying no, we don't say, right? That there that we have that we say Shechianu on that occasion. We have a brighter then that teaches according to Rav Nachman. Shmini regel, as we go over to Memchet a little bit, b'fnei atzmo le'inyan pzar kashav. Okay, that Shmini Atzeret is its own holiday in regards to these 6 aspects. What are they? So the Gemara is going to spell them out for us. First of all, Pies, namely that there is a separate Kohen lottery on that occasion from the other days, from these 7 days of Sukkot. Okay, Bifnei Atzmo. Secondly, Zman Bifnei Atzmo, that we have a separate point to say Shechianu on Shmini Atzeret, just like we say it for any other holiday. 3, Regel B'fnei Atzmo, that it's its own independent holiday. Right? We don't dwell in the sukkah on that day. Right? On Shmini. Okay? 4th one, Korban B'fnei Atzmo.
It's got separate korban.
Right? We have a separate number of offerings.
Right.
In that day, separate from what we saw. In other words, it doesn't continue the diminishing number that we saw with Sukkos. Right? Shira Bifnei Atzmo, that it had its own Levitical song, so to speak. Right? A different psalm. Right? Bracha Bifnei Atzmo, and it has its own blessing.
Right.
You say,
Shem
say-
Shmi Aseres is it?
right? You say Chag Shmini Atzeret, or Shmini Chag Hazeh, whatever language you use, whether it's in Yehuda or Birkat Hamazon, it is a specific reference to that.
Right.
And that shows that it's a separate
You
holiday.
did say a bracha, right? Very good.
Stop right there. Tomorrow we'll pick up with the new Mishnah on Mem Chet Amud Aleph. Ruven, you wanted to add something? No?
This
So,
relates to nothing, but some people say Shmini Atzeres Hakazeh, others and Ashkenaz is Chag Shmini Atzeres Hazeh. What is the origin of the difference?
I don't think there's any real difference. I think what it goes back to is all the way, my feeling, and again, I have no proof for it, is you remember you've got two different minhagim going all the way back to what was the minhag Eretz Yisrael and the minhag in Bavel. Okay, one influenced certain formulations, and one influenced other formulations. Okay, so sometimes the halacha, okay, for the most part, I think, and again, no clear proof, I think a lot of Ashkenazic practice was based probably more on what I'll call minhag Bavel, okay, and Sephardic practices were tended maybe to have been based more on what was Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone. Have a good
Be well.
day.
Yes.
Be safe, everybody.
Take care.
Have a good day.